Welcome to Transformational Leadership, the podcast for leaders building high-performance organizations and teams. In every episode, you will hear from executives and transformation experts who've led with vision, executed under pressure, and delivered real, scalable, and impactful results. You'll hear practical insights and leadership stories from executives who've driven change, delivering transformation, and consistently winning in highly complex environments. No fluff, just frameworks, lessons, and stories from the front lines of leadership. If you're serious about building competitive impact through people, you're in the right place. Here is your host, Jeff Harnois.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Transformational Leadership Podcast. I'm Jeff Harnois, your host. Today, we're going to be speaking with Gerry Watkins, and Gerry is the founder and owner of The Leader's Edge. The Leader's Edge is an organization helping their clients make success a habit, which is a really interesting topic for me. Gerry's business serves a wide variety of organizations, from large enterprises like Intel to local governments to even small businesses. In Gerry's practice, they focus on business leaders, enabling them to transform people and teams, building stronger culture through a 5-step leadership and team alignment process. Today, we're going to be diving into identity culture, helping clients tap into who they need to become as a leader to achieve the success that they're pursuing. We'll also talk to Gerry about a concept that Gerry calls pressure-proofed, focusing on how pressure can sabotage your success. And then we'll wrap up the conversation today talking about team alignment with a focus on how to inspire and motivate their team. And with that, everyone, please join me in welcoming Gerry Watkins to the stage. Gerry, really nice to see you.
Hey, it's really nice to be here, my friend.
I would love to jump into identity culture. When we talked about this before our session today, all kinds of lights and bells were going off in my head. It's a very interesting time culturally, and the word identity has a couple of positive and negative connotations, but you're focusing on it specifically from a leadership perspective. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. This is my favorite thing to do as a coach, to be honest, because I mean, what's more important than somebody's personal identity, right? Who you are. And many times who we are has gotten us to where we are, right? But the real question is, how do we get to the next level, or the next space that we want to go? And so for me, what I found works best is when I started looking at what qualities do I possess and what qualities do I need, and how do they line up with who I want to be even. And that has been like the foundation for me, is learning to transform those qualities, update those qualities. I mean, when I do keep it simple, Jeff, like say if I'm a leader and I need to be more decisive, then how you could study that, you can plan for that, you can work on it, but we don't have time. I don't have time to work on a lot of stuff. So if there's a way I can get there faster, that's what I'm about, the speed. So that's what we've learned to do for ourselves and others is in 2 weeks I can become decisive throughout my life.
There's a couple of things that came up for me while you were describing it. I think the branding, ironically, that I would use for this is really branding. You call it identity. I think again, we're saying the exact same thing here. I know when I work with junior level executives, one of the concepts, exactly what you said, is what got you here may not be the thing to get you to that next level, and you really need to be cognizant that shift that you're describing has to take place. How do you shift your identity? How do you shift your brand to signal that you are in fact ready for the next level and moving in that direction? And a lot of junior executives that I work with are so focused on the work, right? Their subject matter expertise. They sort of overlook that identity component. And if you don't manage it, it will manage you.
Yeah. No, and I love what you say in branding. In fact, I came out of the salon industry, And one of the things we did one year was to allow everybody to brand themselves under our brand because we wanted their individuality to come out and for them to feel strong about that. So what I'm talking about is not just their business, but branding branding them personally. Like, who are you and who do you need to be? Because I don't know if you've heard of this quote that you don't get what you want, you get who you are.
I have not heard that before, but that's brilliant.
You don't get what you want, because if we could get what we want, we'd all be pretty happy right now, right? I, I know I would, but you actually get what you're putting out there. And so another quote that aligns with this really well is a quote says, "You'll never exceed the image you hold of yourself."
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, that's phenomenal.
That's the gut punch, I say, because and so that's what the self concept or identity work is about. Is we all have an image of ourselves as a leader, and that image, as corny as it may sound, is actually controlling our decisions. If we see ourselves as too aggressive as a leader, it's going to impact how we connect and relate with people, positively or negatively, depending on what they need. And so that's why I'm saying, who do you need to be? Are you too aggressive, and you need to be more compassionate with your team? Then we need to add that quality to your makeup, to your brand. That needs to be part of your brand. It's compassion. And how do you do that? Because it's not something we just say, okay, well, be compassionate. No, my nature has been contrary to that. So that might require a little work. Not a lot of work, but a little work.
Jerry, I'm fascinated by this concept. I want to give a little contrast, and then I want to come back and ask you how you do that. I often ask people, can I teach you how to feel empathy? Because we see a lot of leaders that struggle and wrestle with that, not only reputationally, but they really don't have or feel empathy because they're so mission oriented. Can I teach you how to feel empathy? And I'll get a variety of answers to the question, but the truth is, no, I can't teach you how to feel empathy. Can I teach you how to behave in an empathetic manner, though? And the answer is absolutely. And so I'm really interested in, when you talk about this, how do you help your clients? What I think I hear you say is you're teaching them how to not only embrace but operationalize these new identity features. How do you do that?
Right. Well, that's yeah. I'm gonna say this, Jeff. You can't teach them, but I'm gonna. This may sound pretty grandiose, but I can't. And this is what fascinates me about the work.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
No, it and I'll do my best to say big picture, because I don't like to admit it. I'm a bit of a nerd, I guess, from based upon what the word nerd means.
This is a good place to nerd out, I promise.
I was at a networking event a few weeks ago, and there was the nerds, and I was like, wow, I don't know, should I be here? But the idea is this. You've heard people say everything you need, you already have within you. Everything that you need to be successful, you actually already have within you. We were equipped. And that sounds pretty like, yeah, that sounds all nice and cute, but is that real? And I found through this coaching, it's real. See, anybody that's not empathetic as a leader, they've been empathetic somewhere in their life. They've been empathetic maybe with the son that they love, or the daughter that they love, or with their parents. They're empathetic somewhere. We None of us are not empathetic. We just think that's not what they wrote. That's not what they lead with and have developed very well, but they have those experiences already within them. We have a process that we're able, with the NLP technology, to go inside and help a person elicit what we call their template of being empathetic, and find those examples of being empathetic. And I'm just saying very big picture, as big picture as I can. And we find also a quality that they know they are. Like, for mine is loyalty. Nobody could ever convince me I'm not a loyal friend, to a fault sometimes. Well, how do I know I'm loyal? Because I have a lot of examples of being loyal. So I have a very good, my mind has a good sense of my loyalty. But what we simply do on a big level is we take that empathetic template and we build it up to look just like the loyalty template. And their mind, see, because the mindset is a matter of what you remember, what you focus on, all of that. So what you prioritize, we take them through a few sessions to get their mind to prioritize empathy. And we build it like their loyalty template that they already know they are. I know I can do this. And we do all types of shifts. Like one client told me once, he said, "Man, it feels like you're moving things around in my head." So we are. We're taking all those examples and moving them over to a better template for you, one that your mind recognizes that when things are in this form, that's who I am. And it's the coolest technology I've come across. I'm getting kind of chills just thinking about it right
I
now.
am too. This is phenomenal. I want to give a parallel here that's coming up for me, and I apologize in advance that this is going to sound a little weird, but hopefully stay with me and we'll get there. I often think of the 4 minute mile. Um, and there was a time when it was widely believed that humans were incapable of breaking a 4 minute mile. And that was the prevailing what I would call truth, right? Until somebody did it. And once that 4 minute mile was broken, then lots of people started breaking it. And the parallel for me in what you're describing is when you show them, compassion, or in your model, what you were talking about, when you show them loyalty, which is something that is possible for them and is real and they can see it, and then you start bringing in, let's say, empathy, something that maybe they've struggled with or they've conditioned that out of their leadership practice, and you bring it into parallel with something that is real and possible for them, all of a sudden empathy becomes possible and attainable.
That's exactly right, and that's the foundation. And but then it goes way beyond because again, they have a lot more examples of being empathetic. That's not what they lead with, so they don't focus on it. We bring all of that up. We go back when you were 5. I mean, I was doing this with myself. I went back and realized that I was loyal as a 1 year old because I remember my mother told me I put everything after my sister once she was born. I let her service my sister. I said, wow, that was another example to add to my evidence of being loyal. So we build that case for them with techniques, helping them find the examples because they have far more than they realize. And then we actually have helped them create future examples of being loyal. So it leads them in there, and we do techniques how would you say it, make the examples they have more compelling so that their mind is focused in. And now it's a subconscious thing. They don't even have to consciously focus on it. They'll just find themselves being more empathetic because their brain believes they are empathetic,
Because it's possible.
and they are. They just don't lead with it. They don't lead with it.
This is a phenomenal and fantastic model. I'm having a little moment here because it's like, what I said earlier, I can't teach you how to be empathetic. And that's a true statement. I can't teach you how to be empathetic, but you can. That's brilliant. How long does it take for someone to have a mindset shift like that on average?
It's crazy. It's so fast, it scares people. And when I say it scares people, they say, well, that can't be true. And so I almost hate to tell people, you could really do it inside of a session, but our session is only 90 minutes and it takes me about 3 hours. So we do it inside of 2 sessions. I wanted to be more playful and entertaining as a networker, because I'm building business, right? I did it on myself. And inside of 2 weeks, I just wasn't even thinking about it. Find myself out being playful as I'm networking. See, the mind only believes what you focus on, and once it believes something's true for you, like let's go back to your 1 minute mile. The only reason they were able, the other guys were running it, is because somebody made it true. And they said that could be true for me. If he could do it, I could do it. Once the mind believed that, it started using their body differently than when they didn't believe it was true for them. And that's all is really, I mean, on a big level, that's what it's really doing. There's a lot of little things we do in the background, but that's the end result is now we have examples of you being empathetic. We have them in a structure that your mind likes. We've exaggerated these examples. We've multiplied these examples. We've given you feelings around these examples, and your mind just takes it from there. And it's so unconscious sometimes that a few weeks later, they might even say, I was always sympathetic. I never had a problem with that.
I bet that's amazing to
Yeah,
watch.
it just blends back into the background.
That's hilarious, but I could absolutely see that happening. Gerry, later in the episode, we're gonna talk about how people can connect with you on LinkedIn. I'm imagining that there'll be people listening to this or watching this episode and are gonna want to explore this with you. It's a phenomenal topic, and I'm a really big fan of helping people unlock their potential. Very much in alignment with what you're doing. You're doing it on a level that I'm not doing it at. So I really appreciate the work and the perspective on this. And my guess is we probably could spend a lot more time on it, but I would like to move on to the second topic today, which is something that you call pressure proofed. And there may be some relationship between, this identity component and pressure proofing it. Tell me what the concept of pressure proofing means to you.
Well, for me, I got interested in it because I was listening to a guy, he was a record producer, and he said some things. He says that most people believe that musicians that don't make it, they don't make it because they're not talented enough or they didn't get enough exposure, those types of things. And he said that's a myth. He said that's not why they don't make it. This is what he said that really captured me. He said it depends on whether your body can handle being unseen longer than you expected.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah. Well, it's like, obviously they've got a big goal and but they're not getting those hit records. Nobody's paying them much attention. And so he's seeing what's happening is their nervous system is being overwhelmed now because in their thinking, right? It's all in the head here that maybe they're telling things like it's too late for me, this is never going to work. And the pressure, I'll tell you, maybe even a better example is a golfer. I used to cut hair, as I said. I've owned salons. And one of my pro golfers said, I said, why aren't you still on the tour? He says, I'm good at golf. He said, actually, I won third in the Phoenix Open once. He says, but the problem is you have to pay so much money to enter that now if you don't win, you're out of what I don't know what they were paying, $20,000 maybe. And that pressure is what's hurting. It's like if I don't win, I just sold in another 20,000. Well, business owners can relate to that. They built this building and now the pressure's on. And what happens is our nervous system starts shutting down because we have not raised our ability to handle chaos and overwhelm high enough. If our ability to handle chaos is at a 6, when 7 and 8 comes, you start making bad decisions, you start retreating. And so that became of great interest to me is that you have to build your nervous system to where it can handle. Your mind may say, "Yeah, I see big dreams." Um, your mind may say it. You may have these big hopes, but if your nervous system can't handle what it takes, for instance, I meet a lot of people that they're going into business for the first time. Well, they have an employee mindset. They're not really ready for the pressures of doing everything on their own. And so they're at an employee level mindset. Well, we have to get them up to an entrepreneurial mindset because there's going to be all kinds of different pressures that are going to hit them that they're not ready to respond to. And that's why most people don't make it when they step out like that. It's really that pressure of this new situation, and they don't know how to handle these new pressures.
So this topic, this focus point for you is really physiological and neurological.
Exactly, but it's tied into a lot of the pressure is coming because of what we're doing inside of our head. We're creating a lot of the pressure.
Oh, that's not actually real. It's what we're perceiving or what we're manufacturing.
Yes, that's part of it. But as you said, the other part is building yourself up physically in a way that, and when I say physically though, it's still, for instance, I've learned to not rush or feel pressured or not run from the pressure. Part of it's letting the pressure even sit there, understanding that it's not going to break you, it's going to develop you. It's like lifting weights. That's how we actually grow, right? When you first started podcasting, I'm sure that you weren't this smooth, dapper guy that you are today, or as smooth, as dapper, right?
Fair, really fair.
And so, but what seemed chaotic then is a piece of cake for you now because the pressure it grew your nervous system.
Yeah, in fact, let's use that as an example. This is a really good example. Um, you know, fear comes from a couple of places. One of them is about the unknown. And so, when I first started my podcast, yeah, I didn't know what I didn't know. I'm going to tell you, I want to share a mindset with you, but I'll do that at the end here of my own. I didn't know what I didn't know. I'm certain that while I was having conversations with people like we're doing right now, there were a thousand other things going on in my mind about lighting and sound and audio and production and all. I don't think about any of that stuff anymore. Right. I get to focus on you and I get to focus on this conversation and the interesting conversations that we have and that we're having. And so, yeah, you're exactly right. Once you start working it out in that very same way, you realize your perception of pressure kind of goes away. So here's a mindset. Because we're talking about this, I don't know that I've ever talked about this in podcasts before, but one of my mindsets is I'm no longer intimidated by what I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great
I'm
one.
not I'm not intimidated by what I don't know because I'm confident in my ability to know. And so it's okay that I don't know it now. If I want to, if I choose to, then I will go learn that thing, that topic, that subject. I know that I'm capable of learning it. And so when something comes at me sideways, I don't have a fear-based reaction.
Right, right.
I have a curiosity-based reaction.
Yeah, you become a different person. So you can take on more because of that. You can take on more and you don't make maybe the mistakes that a leader might make under pressure. Because that's what I find. A lot of leaders, especially elite leaders, they're good. They know everything they need to know pretty much. But it's like when the pressure is on, now we start making bad decisions or start second guessing ourselves under the pressure. And that's why this became an important focus for me personally and as a coach. It's like, how do you help people develop a routine to grow, to raise their level of chaos, that they can handle their level of overwhelm, mentally, physically? How do you help them to do that and how to think? Part of it's thinking like what you just said was a way of relieving pressure. Before that would have brought you pressure.
That's 100%. In fact, let me just touch on that a little bit as well. That statement, which in retrospect could sound very egotistical. There's no ego in it at all. It's a mechanism for me to quiet down the normal fear-based reaction to the unknown, and operationalize it so that I can stay more in the, the curiosity and the logic side of my brain.
Exactly. And that's, those are some of the things that we're doing. We teach them what we call observational thinking, uh, and different things of how do you do this and take control. And at the same time, how do you keep raising your level of chaos? Life does it naturally, but we want to get ahead of it. Life naturally will, like say you get in a new job, you have a certain pressure, you can't handle anything beyond here. 8 months later, you can handle beyond there, because that's how we grow, is through chaos.
Just right back to the weight room example. The way you strengthen the muscle is by putting it under stress and pressure, and then getting your reps in.
That's exactly it. That's all I'm talking about, right? And you want to do this for the nervous system, because it's at the center of all of this.
So Jerry, just like in that last segment, give us a little, just a little look under the hood of how do you do that with your clients?
Well, one of the things we do, probably the biggest thing I like, is what we call observational thinking. And so, as you know, 99.99% of everything we think about who we can be, what we can do, and what we can have, included what's going to happen, we make it up. It's not based in reality. Some people, one girl, art, she said, "Are you sure it's that much?" Yes. How do I know? Because you don't have a crystal ball. So you couldn't know you couldn't know what tomorrow is going to be. I know we think we know, because no, when I look at what's going on today, I know this. No, you don't. You only think you do, but you're making it up, and you're making up oftentimes conditions that we don't want in our life, and that brings a lot of pressure on the nervous system, unnecessary pressure. So we teach people to come off this automatic response and take control of their thoughts, and teach themselves to be able to focus on exactly what they want. And if all wisdom knowledge is correct, whatever we focus on, whatever we think about, we're going to bring about. That's where we want to be. We want to have control, and especially if we think, but there's a great, great chance this is really going to happen. That's even more so. You don't need to focus on that. Because it's like you're pushing it down the hill. Don't push it down the hill. You better get on the other side of that, and think that's not what you want in your life. So we really teach people to take total control of their thought life, and that's a big part of it. And then there's some meditations that we recommend that are very powerful and easy to do. You don't matter of fact, you don't have to do anything. Put the headphones on, that will push against your nervous system every day, just a little bit. Not enough to irritate you. If you did it twice a day, it would irritate you. It'll push against your nervous system, and it'll raise your level of overwhelm. You don't have to wait on life to do it. You can do it. It's like going to the gym every day. You don't have to work on a farm to get strong. You could just decide to go to the gym and work on it as well. And this is like going to the gym and working on your nervous system.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Yeah, again, I'm just going to say to the audience, we're going to put Jerry's LinkedIn information up later so you can connect with him. I'm certain people are going to want to have a conversation with you around this. Let's pivot over to team alignment. This is actually something that's very near and dear to my own heart, and also in the iBridged practice. Team alignment for me is a critical success factor for organizations. And one of the things that I often share with people to help them understand in sort of a visual manner of what alignment really looks like is, I was a head coach for a football team in the police athletic league, and I was coaching the Pee Wee group, which is 10 to 12-year olds, and these kids were 75 or 80 pounds. And we wanted them to be able to hit and move the tackling dummy that weighed 200 pounds. And then we would have a 200-pound coach standing on it. And the only way these kids could move that is if they were aligned, hitting in the same direction at the same time with the same force. And the takeaway from that is they could move exponentially more than their total weight. They could move significantly more than that when they worked together. And that for me is how I think about alignment. When we have strong alignment, our capabilities are exponentially greater. So I'd love to hear your perspective on alignment.
Well, I started becoming interested in it, Jeff, when my CEO, Bruno Moscola, he's been my mentor in business and partly in life even. Brilliant man. He told me something. I asked him. I said, he sold a company for $415 million, and he just made a lot of money, a lot more than anybody I knew personally. And I asked him. I said, "What's your, how did you get so good at this?" And this alignment starts with one to one because he says, "Jerry, it's simple. I know how to inspire and motivate people." And after sitting with him for years, we were in business in the hair salon industry for over 20 years. After sitting with him, man, this guy you could sit with him for 5 minutes and you're ready to take the heel. You're ready to go to war because he really does know how to tap in and inspire and motivate people. So that became my focus as a leader. We had 6 salons that were doing over 1 million each. We had to have a huge staff to really keep this going. And I said, I've got to learn how to get good at this alignment, getting people to, we do a 5-step process. We help. The main thing is getting people to getting the teams and the leaders to recognize where are the disconnections at. Because, like you say, that alignment is so critical to be able to put power behind it. But if there's disconnections, it's not going to happen. The staff is thinking one thing. Maybe they think the boss doesn't even really care for them, or maybe they think like many people think is the boss is really only here for themselves. They're not that interested in me and what I'm doing. I'm just here to, they just want me here to work. And that's a real big problem in alignment. When the staff is feeling it's all about you and not about them, that's the whole of the problem for me. Uh, and then once we're on the same team, we've got to get the same vision. Because staff, it's like that too. Staff can be selfish. They're only there for them. They don't care what happens to the company. They'll go to another company tomorrow if this doesn't work. So once we get past this selfishness, then it's like getting the vision, everybody on the same vision. And obviously, culture, how important culture is. And I always told our staff, and it was partly true for us as salon owners, it's like you have your own brand. You're your own entrepreneur. I don't pay you, the clients pay you. That's how I pay you. And so getting, no matter what the business arrangement is, getting people to be accountable, treating the business like it's their own. When you can get a culture to do that, that's huge.
I actually that again, that's a really, really deep vein for me. Alignment works best when people start thinking like CEOs or general managers for whatever their scope of work is. You may not be that executive level in the organization, but you are the executive for what you do. And if we add a little entrepreneurialism in there, where you start making decisions on what's best, what's going to give you the best return for the effort that you're putting in or the investment that you're making, when we get people thinking at that level, it sort of opens up a whole new level of envisioning where we could go and what's possible. And then we overlay that with the alignment of what is that common goal and that common vision for the organization, and we see really great things happen. That's a powerful combination.
I mean, you're so right, Jeff. In fact, I like quotes because it keeps me focused. And I used to be a drug and alcohol counselor before I started here actually. And so I got into personal development in that arena. But the guy that taught me, the first guy that taught me, he had a quote that always stuck with me. He says, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care."
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love that.
We make that our leadership training, that is the leading quote. It's like people don't care your position. They don't care how high you're up, or whatever it is you think they care about, until they know how much you care about them. And that's what
People,
changes
I just want to repeat that. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Oh, that's good, Jerry. That's really good. One of my favorite quotes that's sort of in this same vein is people don't always remember what you say. In fact, they often don't remember what you say, but they always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah, that's another great quote, without a doubt. Yeah, yeah.
When I think about leadership, it really is about that connection first. And many leaders are again, they're so orientated, and they're so success driven that they've placed a lower priority on the fact that if they can't get their team aligned, if they can't get their team engaged, it doesn't matter how good their idea is.
No, it starts at a personal level. Matter of fact, I want to do a book. You asked me about a book. The book, I already got the title, the chapters. I got to do it. Is business ain't business. It's personal. It ain't business. It's personal. Everybody thinks it's business. Ask the employee, is it business? Are they thinking about business? Or are they thinking about their personal life? It ain't business. It's personal. And that's why that quote is so real. They don't care about anything until they know you care about them. And that's a game changer. When they get that, I had a staff member once, and she said that she went through the training. She went into management. She says, I did not get what was going on here. I just knew that I felt that you guys cared about me beyond just working here. It's the first place I've ever worked that I felt cared about me personally. People will stick with you like glue when they know you're really working in their best interest. Like one lady, she was going to quit, and before I understood these concepts, she wanted to move on. She was a great colorist, making lots of money for us. She was making lots of money too, but she wanted to do yoga. I'm thinking, yoga, you're making a whole bunch of money right now. I said, why don't you do yoga part time? Well, once I got this concept, I understand how wrong that is. She's telling you what her passion is. And you're trying to talk her into do something for who? For me, not for her. She's already said her passion. She's a person that feels you don't care about me, you care about you. But when you flip that, and people see, like, people after that, if they wanted to do something different, hey, I gave them that freedom to do that, because it's like, I don't need you to, it's not about one person staying to survive. Because most businesses, Jeff, one guy was telling about this, he went through the class. He gave me the best analogy. He says most companies are like bad marriages. Everybody puts up with each other until they don't need each other anymore, and then they move on.
Yeah, people don't leave bad companies, they leave bad bosses.
Exactly, exactly. When they don't need you anymore, they'll put up with it as long as they need you. But the minute somebody don't need you anymore, and that's what I think. And but the employees are bad. They're responsible as well, but it's got to start with the leadership. The leadership has got to be able to. We call it, that leadership is called how to move from me to we. We've got to set the tone of, it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about we, how we're going to do well in this environment. And when the leader leads that tone by caring about a person beyond just, I just work here, they're more than just a number. What are their goals? Why are they here? We need to know, what are they here for? That's how you inspire them, once you know what they're really here for. But most people have no idea why people work for them. They don't know their deepest values.
They should ask, right? They should ask they should get to a place, to your point exactly. Why are you here? What motivates you? What compels you to stay? How can I give you more of that? Right? How can I, as a leader, how can I give you more of that?
Exactly. And some people might be listening thinking, well, that's not going to make a difference. It's huge, because if you find out what people's 10 most important things are for work and for life, And this is something somebody taught me one time. Once I find out what your 10 most important things are here on the job, and I say, what would cause you to leave? And they tell me, and I say, okay, if I fix that, what else would cause you to leave? Once I find the two or three things that will cause them to leave, I already know what'll fix it, and I already know what inspires and motivates this person. I'm in a powerful position.
Absolutely. I love the intelligence gathering component of what you said. And I think one of the keys to this, Jerry, is you have to be intentional about that as a leader, right? Make that happen, gather that intel, and then the final step of that puzzle, of course, is then you have to put it into action.
We put a card on everybody in the salon. We have a card so that we know what's important to this person.
Oh, I love that. Love that idea. This is phenomenal. Jerry, I have to tell you, I'm loving this conversation. My sense is we probably could go on for hours. Um, we don't have the cycles for that, but I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I want to pivot to um, a couple of questions that I ask all of my guests. The first one is, what was the best piece of advice you received and didn't take?
Well, I guess if I'm being very transparent, it was to start saving young because I've been independent all my life. And, I've worked, I probably only worked, I was in the military for 8 years, but after that, I've always owned the business. And so you find yourself playing catch up later on in life. So I would say to anyone that's working for themselves, definitely, you know, before you know it, time has moved on. And so that would be the number one thing. If that would be one of the few things I would do if I went back and did it again. I would start earlier, saving, investing for my retirement.
If I could just add to that a little bit, what I see happening out in the world today with young people, and I just don't know if they understand how financially deadly it is. But consumer-based debt, credit card debt, is absolutely what's going to prevent you from achieving any sort of wealth. Avoid it every chance you get.
You sound like a friend of mine.
Is that right? Yeah, if you can't, this is a little extreme, but if you can't pay cash for it, you can't afford it.
Oh
Don't do
no,
it.
I think that's a great. There's one gentleman that teaches that big time. I attended his seminar years. Yeah, it's like cash. If you can't pay cash for it, you can't afford it.
Yeah, just move on, figure out something else because once they harness you with consumer debt, they've got you. And it is really, I mean, it takes some sort of significant financial event for you to be able to dig yourself out. And yeah, it is one of the big traps for young people today. So good. What Jerry, if someone were coming up in your field in the world of consulting or even entrepreneurialism for that matter, um, what's if you could share one piece of advice that would really, stack the deck in their favor, what would that be?
Well, I would say if they were specifically in coaching, or even if they weren't, my advice would be the same. Everybody says, you know, everybody knows you can't work in your business for long and grow it. You've got to work on the business, right? But I think there's even a greater priority, which is work on yourself first, though, because you are the business. You're the bottleneck. If you're the decision maker, you will only grow. That's what John Maxwell's main thing is. His first law, the law of the lid. The business will only grow to the level that you grow. And so my thing, if they're a coach, you need to be the product first and foremost, right? When I was a hairdresser, I always kept my hair nice. I always dressed nice. I'm not going to be the hairdresser with bad hair, right? If as a coach, I work on myself constantly. I have coaches. I work on myself because I need to be the product for one thing. But even if you're not a coach, it's going to be the fastest way for any business leader to get to where they need to get to is to work on themselves. You know, that's, because they're going to be the bottleneck. They're going to have to learn skills. to inspire and motivate people. They're going to have to learn how to stay focused on the dream. There's a lot of things they're going to need to get very skilled at to pull it off at the level I'm sure that most people want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. In that same vein, what piece of wisdom would you want to share with a peer of yours? Again, something that maybe has been foundational for your success, something that you'd want to share with others so that they could replicate it. What would that be?
Well, I mean, this one might be kind of, just boring for them, but it's just the God's truth. One of my mentors was teaching class, and he asked us all in there, was different business owners. He says, what kind of business are you in? And, there was mechanics, there were different types of business. He said, no, what you're really in is the sales and marketing business. Okay. That's what you're really in. Okay. And though that is not what I enjoy doing. Matter of fact, the call with my marketing guy when we get off here. But the problem, it's just real as can be. I don't care how great a coach you are. I don't care how motivated you are. If you got no clients, you got no business.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm smiling at this ear to ear because that's exactly true. I can't tell you the number of consultants that I meet, some in my field, working on the behavioral programs and the psychometric programs that we use. And many of them would consider themselves to be subject matter experts. We see a lot of people who are coming out of HR or a lot of people who are coming out of learning and development, and they really know their topics, they know their subjects. And then we talk about, the idea of having to sell, and it is not a completely foreign concept to them, but it going back to the previous part of our conversation, it absolutely triggers a fear-based response like, oh my gosh, I have to sell. Yeah, you got to start there. To your point, if you don't have clients, you don't have a business. And if you don't understand that, you are predictably going to fail.
Predictably.
Well, Gerry, I have to tell you, I have just loved this conversation. Your depth and your command of the topics are phenomenal. I mentioned earlier that I would put your LinkedIn up. If people want to connect with you, LinkedIn is a good place to do that. Is that right?
Most definitely, yes.
Okay. So I'll put that up here in the box so people can come and find you. We'll also make sure that it's in the show notes so that if people want to reach out. And what time zone are you in?
I'm in the Arizona time zone, which we're on Pacific time right now. We go back and forth between Mountain and Pacific.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, Gerry, thank you so much for joining us today. Here's to all of your success and all of the success your clients are going to enjoy because they've worked with you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It was a real pleasure, and you're great at this. I love it.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Okay. You take care.
Take care.
The Transformational Leadership Podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes vision, action, diagnostics, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, be sure to let us know in the comments. We'd love you to join the conversation and help us transform the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are transforming organizations, leaders, and teams. In the meantime, be sure to like, subscribe, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.